we're out to shoot a mature deer. Inches are just another,
Yeah.
I don't know, just another thing out there that people want to sell, in my opinion. All the gimmicks out there. It's all about killing mature deer.
Lights, camera,
Follow the trail.
ready to shoot.
If you know where a deer's bedding and you know where he's eating, that deer should be dead.
If you're passive on a deer, what you're doing is you're teaching them.
I've got 30 bucks in the Michigan record book. Everyone but one has had at least one previous wound on his body. Some had as many as 4.
Trail Cam Radio from the guys at Exodus.
All right, we are live at the Wild at Heart lair. Awesome living room.
Thank you.
We walked in and Cameron and I just got back from Colorado and was in awe at the elk there.
Were you guys hunting?
We were hunting. I guess you call it that. It was a lot more of just walking.
Walking with a bow in your hand.
Yeah, walking and listening. A lot of 10-day nature hike. But we got that inaugural trip out of the way, and I wish I could say we learned a bunch and what we could do differently, but might have to wait a month or two to reflect back on that. But we got our butts kicked. You guys also just got back from Montana as well. I kind of followed along on your guys' Instagram. Do you want to – I know you guys ended up shooting a cow, but it sounds like you guys had some close encounters and also a lot of walking as well.
Oh, yeah. Lots of walking. Probably worked a little bit too hard on that trip. I mean, if you're working that hard, that means things aren't going well. But we did what we could.
We kind of made it a point to not miss up on, or pass up on any opportunity we could take. If we heard a bull bugling, we went after it.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how far away it was or what time of day it was, we were pretty relentless. I would say.
Yeah.
Is that the same area you guys go back to almost every year, or is that a whole new area you guys tackled this year?
We were there in 2015, and we actually brought that bull home from there. And that was the last time we hunted Montana. Yeah. So we figured we'd go back there just having like a little leg up, and figured it would be the same or close to, and it was completely different just due to hunting pressure.
That particular year or multiple years in a row, are you thinking? Or
we have some friends that live out there, and they said it was like at the year after we left, the place just blew up with hunters. So they won't even hunt it anymore.
Oh, wow.
I don't think I will want to either.
Fair enough. Before we get too far into this, real quick, Kelly, Jameson, tell us like who you are and what you guys do for a living too, for anyone that isn't familiar with you guys.
I'm Kelly. I'm from Youngsville, Pennsylvania. I'm a lineman, electric lineman. I have a wife and 2 kids here in my home, and just love hunting.
I'm Jameson. I work in the oil field. I'm from Warren, Pennsylvania. I have a little girl and my wife, Chelsea. And I also love hunting.
Seems you're awkward, right?
Yeah. Yeah. What?
Introducing yourself?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's about it.
So how did you guys are kind of a duo per se. It seems like, how did you guys meet and how did you guys kind of start going on some adventure hunts, or how did that originally start?
We actually met we grew up playing sports against each other, kind of at rivaling schools, and I knew he was a big hunter. He knew I was a big hunter. One day we met up and said, "Hey, you want to go hunt Ohio for deer?" And he said, "Sure. Where are we going?" I said, "I don't know. Let's go check out some areas." So we went, asked some farmers for some property or permission to go hunt their property, and end up hunting this pig farm. It was a joke. We camped out like right at the end of the the barn where the pigs were, and the fans were blowing the pig smell on our tent.
Yeah,
it was pretty non-enjoyable. We ended up not hardly seeing anything, and it was a pretty bad trip. But for some reason, we stuck together, and from there we did some western trips and kind of just found a good pair. I think Clint was saying that you and him kind of got together and
Yep.
kind of found out that you guys matched up well, and
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of how it worked out for Kelly and I.
A couple Pennsylvania guys going to Ohio to deer hunt.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen often, does it?
No comment.
Yeah.
No comment.
Oh, yeah. Well, it used to be the other way around, just so you know.
Really?
Yeah. All the Ohio guys used to come to
That's-
Pennsylvania to hunt.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
Probably to this specific area. I know Ty Nesta,
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
whole area
everyone
is
has a camp.
flooded with camps.
Oh, yeah.
Times have changed a little bit. So
They sure have. Hey, we're getting some good deer around here, so
Yeah.
we're getting back in the game.
Nice. Yeah, there's been a lot of big deer that I mean, the litmus test of the internet, it seems like there's more big deer getting killed out of Pennsylvania every year. But I have a quick question. Obviously, you guys went on some hunts and then started doing some backcountry hunts. And then, so what came first, the backcountry hunts or the Wild at Heart inspired by the John Eldridge book? So the chicken or the egg, what came first in those two things?
I think the backcountry hunts probably came first, or at least the first one.
Yeah, that was definitely our first adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of
Yeah, we
Our
went
thing.
to Montana. Our first ever hunt out west was in Montana in the thickest grizzly country. I almost said
Yeah,
it,
he-
country.
he calls it grizzly country.
Yeah.
No
That,
pun intended.
It was like we bit off more than we could chew, really. But we got into elk, and it like hooked us. I mean, it was quite the adventure. We had no clue what we were doing, but
That's sometimes that's what's fun about it.
yeah,
Doing things you don't know what you're doing.
yeah.
Just
I mean,
just
I remember
going for it.
It was scary. I remember that.
Yeah.
Grizzly tracks everywhere and sleeping in a tent. We didn't have a gun. We didn't have bear spray. Pretty unprepared.
Yeah.
But
Any grizzly encounters that trip?
no.
We should
Thankfully.
have. I don't know how we didn't.
Yeah, I honestly don't know how. I mean,
Fresh
What?
kills.
yeah,
Walking out on Cub Creek.
yeah. It was pretty wild, but it hooked us. So actually, this year was our 9th year going out west. So
well, you guys are doing some other stuff out there too, not just backcountry elk hunts, but you guys have done some high country mule deer hunts and some
Yep.
different things outside of Montana as well.
which I think we both prefer, to be honest, the high country mule deer stuff. It's kind of more of our style, I'd say. I don't like elk hunting's fun. Don't get me wrong, but like I know, like personally, when I'm in the woods, I don't like to let anything know I'm there. I just feel weird when you're like
just vocalizing and just
breaking sticks
Yeah.
and calling. I much prefer to like spot something and make a game plan to slip in on it. But
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
think that's kind of why we like the spot and stalk game.
Yeah. Well, we feel so foreign when we hunt elk just because we kind of our crutch is that we are whitetail hunters born into whitetail hunting. So when you go out there and elk hunt, like you just got to be really aggressive and you got to sometimes cover ground and get in on them. It doesn't matter how much noise you make. And the first 3 years of elk hunting, we were just like always too far away from the elk.
Yeah,
Like we weren't even in the game because we're whitetail hunters and we're just sitting back,
playing it safe.
playing it safe. But
have you guys used any of that aggressive, like that mindset, I guess, like in the whitetail words on the ground? I know that like you start to, of course, you get on the internet or YouTube and you start watching guys doing different things, and it seems like there are a lot of guys getting aggressive now, going in and killing more and more deer off the ground, especially with like what THP and some of those guys
Mhm.
doing. Have you guys done any of that? Like as far as no?
Not with a bow. I
yeah,
mean,
rifle.
I guess, it's not, you're not getting
Right,
as
right.
intimate with it, but I mean, it sounds fun. I think I think like in our mountainous setting, it would be pretty tough,
Right.
to do it, but
Mhm.
I think it's possible
Mm-hmm.
for sure.
No, I'd probably agree with you. I think most of the stuff that you're seeing with those guys killing whitetails off the ground, they're in, plain or flat country, ag ground.
Yeah.
Lots of cover, lots of ditches and whatnot you can
Yeah.
sneak around
Yeah.
on where.
I just maybe if you had a real wet day and the
Mhm.
leaves are quiet, but
Yeah, that would be the biggest thing.
yeah.
Just
You're almost just the whole Dan Infalt style. Get within 80 yards of them,
Mhm.
70 yards of them, and just let them make the mistake. That's almost, I don't know if there's any other better way to do that. We do it with a rifle, though. Last year, a couple buddies of mine just did little 3-man pushes on points and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We killed 4 buck in New York State on public land. Just doing little We'd have one guy go below a point, and then one guy stay on the same elevation that we figured the buck would be on, and then the other guy walk to the point, and either the buck would drop off the point or he'd run the same elevation out. And we ended up killing in like 2 days of hunting. We killed 4 buck.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a ton of fun. So I kind of foresee myself doing that again. Hopefully I don't have a deer tag in Pennsylvania come rifle season.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Got it. Real quick, how did you guys get linked up, like Exodus and you guys? Obviously, I wasn't there for the induction of that relationship, so I think people might be curious.
I'm sure it was probably pursuing the Allegheny.
It was. I can't remember how we found that film, and I can't remember if I found it or if Matt found it. But I think it was I want to say 2015 probably, and I think that we had called one of you guys and just had we were basically looking for some type of videography work, and we liked the way that you guys presented that film so much. Personally, it's one of my favorite films, but we liked the way that it was shot. We liked the way the story was told, and we were basically looking for a story video to be created about Exodus, the inception, how we got started and all that. And then, when we talked to you guys, and at that point in time, you guys were like, well, we've never done anything like that. We don't even know how to put a monetary value on it or anything.
Yeah. I remember that conversation. I was actually at work in my office, and you guys called, and it was a little conference call. But you guys were just starting out too.
Yeah.
You guys were new, and we were fairly new, so you were kind of we were just kind of feeling each other out, just trying to see if we could kind of develop a mutual beneficial relationship. And I don't know, nothing really ever came of it until we kind of ran into you at the show recently, and just been a friendship kind of more or less over the years. Just
I actually remember before the show, last fall, I think I ordered a camera, and then you, without, I don't know, you just must have recognized my name. You responded to the email, my confirmation email.
Okay.
You asked if we had done any filming this year. I thought that was pretty cool. You must have seen that and made it personal.
You'd be surprised. I mean, I know that as far as our customer base is growing, but we're still pretty intimate with customers as far as recognizing who they are. Even when people call in, people are like,
well, even today, you handed that phone off to me, and after I got done talking to him, I was like, I talked to that guy in summer 2018, I guarantee it. I looked it up. He ordered a camera summer 2018.
Yeah. So it's kind of neat, and that's, I don't know, it's just something, the way that we handle business,
cool.
Business, I guess. I don't know. We don't really think much of it. We just treat people how we think they should be treated, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it's cool. I'm sure people appreciate it. We did.
Yeah.
Some people do. Some people don't.
Tough to do that at scale. But I guess actually that segues into kind of the Pursuing the Allegheny. We kind of relaunched that onto our YouTube channel this year, and first of all, thank you.
Yeah,
it was
thank
really
you
cool.
guys.
It was really cool to do that, and the feedback that comes in on a consistent basis. People love watching that film. We always get now where exactly at in the Allegheny is that?
Yeah.
Actually, you guys put the smack down on something.
Yeah, we've had people say, well, it looks like you're hunting over in this bay up at Kinzoo. And I'm like, if you really want to know, I'll tell people anymore. We just jump around so much, but anyway.
Well, walk us through kind of why you guys did that film and kind of behind the scenes that went into that, because you guys show the entire process in that film, the summer scouting or the spring scouting and everything that goes into it.
Yeah.
I think the why would be for fun at that point in time. There was nothing outside of hunting for fun.
We were bored. No, we were.
Yeah, basically.
We were bored with our whitetail hunting.
Yeah. Yep. And we had talked for years, probably 3 years about, man, one of these falls we should just forget about going to Ohio or hunting farmland, we should go up there and boat around and hunt. And we kept like, yeah, it sounds cool, but I bet the hunting sucks, you know. So we would never do it. And we finally decided to do it, and I mean, it was just fun. It was a blast.
Yeah, the way it all played out was we had been going out west for a year or two, and then we kind of thought, this is so much fun, this whole backcountry hunting, just going out and having an adventure style hunt. We're like, we need to do this for whitetail around here. It's possible, you know. There's remote areas that we can go and like get deep and maybe hunt some non-pressured, which come to find out most of those deer aren't non-pressured, but it was still fun to get back in and to camp and somewhere remote and feel like it was an adventure and to hunt that style. Kind of a Western style hunt. And that's what we needed at the time. We were just so bored of hunting whitetail around here, just like everyone else. You know, not everybody, but a lot of people just walking in 100 yards, 200 yards in the woods and sitting the same trails they always sit.
Yeah.
And before then, we didn't really know much about bedding and Dan and Fault and that whole hunting public, what they got going on right now. So we were just kind of bored.
So that was I guess your first big woods whitetail experience, was that?
Yeah.
Yep.
So now that you have a couple years under your belt of like big woods type scenarios, like obviously you guys found success pretty damn fast. That's probably, I would say that's not typical for guys to go do that their first year. What has that, like, what have the follow-up years been like as far as?
It made us learn. We had to learn to keep killing, because we actually, after that film, went two years where neither of us killed a buck in our home state. And it was just due to lack of knowledge and learning, like what Dan teaches has changed. I mean, it's flopped it 180 now, like what our encounters and success rates and all that. He definitely shortened the learning curve for us, which he's done for tons of people. But I mean, we needed it because, like you said, we found that success like that the first year, and we just thought, well, we'll just go do what we did, and we'll go hunt this saddle again, and a buck's gonna come through, and hunt it for 2 years, and you don't see a deer, you know.
Right. So that's basically what you guys, I mean, prior to I guess adopting the beast style, learning bedding and thermals and leeward sides of ridges and all that stuff, you guys are basically just sitting in pinch points or funnels based on topography,
benches,
and just waiting 4, 5, 6, 7 days, waiting for a deer to basically walk by.
And I would say most of the deer in that film were all probably 3.5-year-old deer.
Probably.
Might have been 1 4.5-year, but fairly young deer. Which, I mean, Dan will even tell you that you're gonna find young deer in those saddles and stuff like that. But yeah, in the next 2 years, we hardly saw a buck.
Yeah,
just had I mean, it was a rough next couple of years. It was pretty amazing that whole film came together the way it did, because 2 years after that, none of us shot a buck, and then that year all 3 of us shot buck, Nate included.
Yeah.
So and we filmed everything. So, and then later on, we're just like, forget the camera. We can't even see a deer. Why should we try to film when you can hardly lay your eyes on one?
I know the feeling.
Yeah.
But I mean, it forced us to learn, which was good. Like I'm glad it happened that way, because it made us learn why.
If we would have been shooting 3.5-year-old deer in saddles the next couple of years, we wouldn't be where we are today for sure.
No.
I was reading books, dude. I was ordering whitetail books on Amazon, like one after the other, wasn't I?
Yeah.
I was just trying to, there's somebody out there has it figured out. Like, somebody is doing it right, and I'm reading Rub Line Secrets by Greg Miller and all this, all this stuff. And I learned from those books, but it wasn't till Dan that really things started hitting home.
And how do you guys find him? How do you guys find Dan and Fault?
I think I found him online one day, just prior to his big blow up, and I listened to I don't know if I read an article or listened to a short podcast, and it was so, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for right here. I mean, it was so simple and to the point that I was like, well, duh. Like, yeah, that makes sense. And I like immediately called Jay. I'm like, dude, you got to listen to this guy, because I think he's really onto something here, because it just makes too much sense, you know. But I mean, ever since then, it hasn't been easy since we've learned. I like want to make sure that's known, you know, like it's still tough, but we just find ourselves in better situations more often.
Yeah, for sure.
You still got to stay on top of everything, and like in these big woods here, where the only food source sometimes is acorns. I know, like he'll say, I've heard him say, like, he doesn't think deer are nomadic. I think these deer are. I don't know that. I mean, I'm not saying they're going 10 miles, but I mean, what's to say they're not bouncing a few ridge lines over, or like, and it's all due to acorn crop, I think.
We find the same thing. Spending that time on public ground in Ohio, it's not as big as the Allegheny, but it's 60,000, continuous acres. There's a little more structure because there's more TSI, or the state's doing more for as far as timber management there. But you still see the same thing. Those deer will kind of hole up in certain areas based on, what they're feeding on, and then they're somewhere else like the next week, and it's crazy how big they're. And we're fortunate enough to see that because we run so many cameras. A normal person that has 4, 5, 6 cameras in the woods probably not going to see it, but when you have cameras, multiple cameras in every ridge, you see them bounce around and hole up in different areas. So that's
interesting.
I would definitely agree with you that to a point they are very nomadic creatures in the big woods.
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah.
How has the last couple of years been to where you have adopted some of the beast style tactics in the big woods?
I think it's been awesome.
Yeah, I've had more fun hunting last couple of years than a lifetime of hunting.
I mean, I think the first 2 years that we adopted those tactics, we killed 3 bucks with our bows, right? I mean, within those first 2 years, and then add a few with the rifle
and the sightings. Just seeing mature deer on their feet.
All those hunts that were that close to killing one. It's been really fun.
Yeah. What I like about it too is, like, last year I mean, you don't have to go sit in your stand all day long. Sometimes all you need is an hour. That last hour, and if you're going in quiet enough, like if you're taking your time and getting into your stand, half the time I'm hanging my set and there's deer walking around me. Yep. Like, you're seeing deer as you're hanging your set. That's how slow and quiet we like to get into our sets.
Yeah, I think one thing that makes that fun is, like I mentioned earlier, that we really like that spot and stock game out west. And it's not much different than what we're doing here, aside from not laying eyes on the buck. Like, you're anticipating him being there on that point or wherever it might be, and you're sneaking in as close as you can, slowly checking the wind. And like on a spot and stock thing out west, a lot of times you're just getting as close as you can and waiting out to let that animal make a mistake, and it's really the same. It's the same thing,
The only disadvantage we have is we can't see. We can't glass from half a mile away.
So you guys are basically looking at topography features, trying to locate what you think would be would lay out to be strategic bedding for a specific deer, and then going in, 80 to 100 yards, setting up.
Yeah, well, sometimes we go in on whims and just hunt topography like that. I'll do that in New York just because I don't have time to go there and scout. So I'll just scout some topography and go bomb in on it, and it's proven to be successful, especially when you have these obvious, like, bedding points, and there's going to be doe stacked in on there, and then you just hunt the ditches in between, and then the bucks cruise. But for the most part, we're spring scouting, just like a lot of guys are, and we're lining up sign, rub lines, doe bedding with these points and stuff, and so we're not just guessing.
So you guys are finding beds.
We're
post-season scouting and then marking them and saying, okay.
Yep.
So
you guys. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say the topography just points us in the right direction,
right? And
then from there, it's just a matter of learning where exactly on the topography they're bedding.
Yeah, because it's not always on the like there might be a like a small thicket or an edge or something that's off to the side that I found in a few places, like one being right down the road here,
Yeah.
you know.
Where was that?
Yeah, but you know, it's like you look at it on the map and you listen to the leeward side stuff, and like when you're first learning about it, you just say, well, that's where they're going to be. Well, it's not always, you know, there's definitely some variations, and that just comes with hunting the same place year after year, and the more times you scout it. But I think a few of those places are getting pretty dialed in, I believe. Time will tell here in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
But
how are you guys using trail cameras with those beast tactics in relation to bedding? Are you guys having? I know you guys are running cameras, but walk us through that process, like postseason, to kind of confirm what you're seeing scouting, and then through the summer for inventory or whatever, and then in the season. What's that look like for you guys?
I actually had that kick buck, that deer. That deer, he just made this monstrous rub line, and I ran one of those cameras on a scrape, and I didn't really hunt it that year. I just knew it was a big rub line. I figured it was a mature deer, and I put the camera up on that scrape right off his rub line. I ended up getting pictures of him, and then I ran a mineral the next year which I figured was away from his bedding. I didn't want to crowd his bedding. So I ran a mineral just to see if he was going to be still alive or what buck was there. And come to find out, it was the same buck that had the scrape. He was living there the next year. And I got pictures of him all summer long. And it's more like, so that year it would have been a lineup for the next year. Like, I wanted to make sure he was still there, and that buck that was making that rub line was still hanging out in that core area, which that one was. And I think a lot of the times we run cameras, we're real shy to run cameras in the areas that we hunt the year of.
Especially like in the big woods, there's places like people don't go often, and I'm like, I don't want to go in there unless I'm gonna put that camera up in July and then go grab it after the season just for intel for the following year. I don't think from a wanting to kill the buck perspective that it's worth laying boot tracks, and like they're gonna cross your path at some point.
Yeah,
you know?
we always say presence is pressure.
Yeah.
So I guess for us it's more like for intel for the future.
Yeah.
So we
let them soak is.
Yeah.
I mean, like, think about that. I was almost gonna say the area, but the buck. Anyways, right after
it's hard to tell a story when you don't want to give a detail.
When I'm used to just talking to him and we just throw out names of ridge lines and stuff, it's tough to like not do that. But last year, right after archery, I went and scouted a place that we have never hunted and started finding some big sign, and I took 3 cameras with me just in case. I didn't really have plans of hanging them. Well, I hung them like real close to where I figured a deer would be bedding, and ended up getting a bunch of like daylight photos of a big 11 point. And we didn't even put a camera in there this summer or anything. We went and scouted it in March, and there were photos of him in February still holding, so he's alive, and we just figured there's not even a sense of going in there. We'll head in there in hunting season. And
that's something like the historical or annual data that you can get from trail cameras and leaving them like soak, unchecked, unpressured, without any human, I guess, effect on any deer movement, is something that we talk about a lot. And it's interesting that you guys are basically explaining that, but just in your own words, like as far as letting them soak and and using that intel for the next year or the year after. Have you guys seen that at all, as far as like, I guess specifically around a rut, with deer showing up in the same general areas like year over year?
I mean, in these big woods places, I don't know that we have enough. We haven't been hunting them that long, only a handful of years, and for a few of the years we weren't hunting them correctly. So I think like this year that will show in a few spots. We'll see some things that correlate. I mean, I know like my grandfather owns a farm 20 minutes from here. It's like 100 acres, but there's a bunch of timber property around it, and like during the rut, I know I can go there certain days, and like deer will be here. Like bucks will do the same thing. Happens every year. So I'd only have to imagine it's probably the same out there. But time will tell.
I think Clint was talking about that, how you guys were running cameras on and finding that certain ridge lines were getting hot at certain times of the year because the doe families were coming into estrus. Sort of thing. Your cameras are showing that. So you knew to hunt that ridge that time of the year, 3rd through the 7th or whatever.
Right. And there's a lot of stuff that throws that off. If, that's a tricky thing about public. Like, you could be running cameras or even not running cameras and just hunting. You could show up in a spot and think you're in the spot you need to be, but there could have been a guy there 2 days before,
blew it up.
a day before,
20
yards from where you're trying to get set up, and maybe he's dropping a deuce or something in the woods. who knows, So it's always tough to. That's always in the back of my mind when I'm in.
Did someone drop a deuce?
Yeah.
Did somebody drop a deuce by mistake?
It could happen. Do you have any more questions specifically? Well, let me ask you this: do you guys have any particular bucks or predictions for this upcoming year? I mean, your guys' season starts here very quickly, and you guys are talking about some of the historical data that you're hoping plays out this year. Is there anything you guys have in store and plans?
Just to kill a big buck.
Yeah.
Simple.
Actually, I'm kind of on a wing it year. I don't really have a whole lot lined up. I mean, there's good buck everywhere, and I'm not picky. I'll shoot. I mean, the buck I shot last year was 6.5, but he was 120. Wasn't even 130.
Yeah. And he knows he was 6.5 because he had him lab aged. So.
Interesting.
Cement him or whatever.
Yeah. And there's that big shed there, that 150-inch shed behind. That is from the same area as where James shot his buck last year.
One ridge over.
So it's just interesting how, that deer was able to put on a bunch just eating acorns where other deer just might not have it in the genetic side,
Yep.
But like he said, we're not. If a deer's 6, it's going to get an arrow flying at it.
Believe it.
We're out to shoot a mature deer. Inches are just another, I don't know, just another thing out there that people want to sell, in my opinion. All the gimmicks out there. It's all about killing mature deer.
Yep.
They're the challenge to kill, not the ones that have inches on their head. It's what's between their ears that makes them hard to kill.
So here's a question.
Oh,
You kind of
open up a can of worms or what?
laid this one up. We've talked about this a lot, Jake and I. So if you had a 160-inch 3-year-old
Oh, here we go.
and a
I'd shoot 'em both.
120-inch 6-year-old, you would choose the 6-year-old? Because I would shoot the 3-year-old personally.
Yeah, I probably would too.
Yeah. You're right. Well,
that's funny. No, I get what you're saying. It's the and I think a lot of guys are starting to get to that point where it's about the chess match and being able to outsmart something that has outsmarted a human being or other predators for so long.
Yeah.
And that's their sole existence of everything that they do every single day is just living.
Just surviving.
That's
it. When you hunt in places that make it a little bit more adventurous as well, like that tends to go down on your list. Like I'm not out. I want to shoot mature deer, but I don't care what he scores.
Right.
It's like waking up at 3:30, starting your hike at 4. It's an hour and a half hike to get there. Hang your set in the morning. You're there all day. You might bounce around, but you're there all day. Like it's just fun.
It's a different breed of whitetail hunting to do.
Yeah.
To do. I mean, it's not. You're not.
I would assume that like where you're hunting, I think you kind of gave us a hint in Harrisburg. It's pretty similar, I would think. The topography and everything is.
Where's that at?
Yeah, where is that? Southeast Kentucky.
Yeah.
Round Mountain.
You know what I've learned in life? You're never gonna be the best. So, you're never gonna be the best. There's always someone out there that's better than you.
Right, but somebody has to be the best.
Yeah, it's not going to be me. I'll guarantee that. So what I'm saying is, you watch TV and I mean the Drury guys passing up 160-inch deer. It's like, so if you're going for inches, like I don't know. I just think just enjoy it for yourself.
Yeah.
It's like running races, 5Ks, whatever. Like there's always going to be someone that's going to beat you out there. I mean,
Oh, for sure.
For me anyway. I'm not a very good runner, but so guess what I'm saying is I just hunt for myself.
Yep.
And if it tickles my fanny, then I'm going to shoot it.
Well, that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
That's what if you're doing it for somebody else and you're doing it for wrong damn reasons.
Yeah, the social media fame or whatnot.
Yeah, and that's all over the place these days.
You can get pretty wrapped up in all that.
Well, thankfully, there's a lot more relatable content out there too now, where it's not just mainstream television or like the traditional hunting shows. Like, there's films like yours out there. There's people like Dan. There's a ton of great content on YouTube that like, hey, if these guys are going out there and getting it done, I can too. Versus like, I don't have a bucket full of money to I don't come from a rich farming family that has generations of land. So I think it's cool that what you guys do in documenting that too, because I'm sure you guys have inspired people to even go out there and try to tackle the Allegheny. I guarantee people have done that.
Yeah, I mean, I know a handful of people that
we've got a lot of feedback from guys that
have tried it since then, and yeah.
Well, we started to get a little bit. How are we on time?
We're at 35 minutes.
Okay, we got some time. As long as you guys.
Yeah.
That's
fine.
I want to try to get back on topic there. We got off track a little bit, but it was all good. So when you guys, with that, I guess the B style stuff, obviously scouting is a big part of that. But at the same time, you guys mentioned like presence is pressure. So what are you guys doing as far as, if any, like in-season boots on the ground stuff? I mean, you scouting on the way in, like to your set, and that's it, or?
Well, I think we've learned that has to be done. Last year made us learn that. We scouted a bunch in the spring, found awesome stuff, went to hunt it last fall, and last fall our acorn crop was horrible. It was bad. There was like little pockets here and there that would have it. The year prior, I think it was very good. So a lot of those places we find sign or certain bedding areas that held deer weren't holding deer last year. And, I mean, it took us most of the season to finally get onto deer.
Yeah.
Where this year I would like to apply a little bit more in-season scouting. I'm not sure exactly how to go about that in some places. Like, I mean, a few places, if you hike up that mountain, you're going to hunt there.
Yeah.
You don't really have any other option,
Mm-hmm.
other than just walk back to the truck. But
yeah, I think we've talked already about doing more in-season scouting.
Yeah.
And I think we've come to the conclusion now where, like, if we go in season and scout an area, find a area that's tore up with scrapes and rubs, and, you might as well just hunt it when you find it right away, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But even if you did put a little pressure on it, you're not gonna be out of the game. Like,
No.
just if you have to, give it a few days, but don't leave it too long and go back and hunt it while it's fresh. You know what I mean? So we've kind of learned, like, maybe that's not such a horrible thing. Just to, I say presence is pressure, but that's like like checking your cameras like every week, like a lot of people do.
Yeah.
But if you were to go in, find a bunch of fresh sign and hunt it that day, or come back in a couple days where you think that buck might be bedding and hunting it, then I don't think you can bump a buck out of his bed one time and he's just going to abandon the bed. You know what I mean?
No. And actually, when we first started this style, I went after work and scouted a place, and I still didn't have a grasp on this whole thing. And I went to like a point. I found a bunch of rubs. I assumed I probably kicked the deer out of his bed that day because I found a bed. I'm like walking in it during hunting season. I like go down the ridge, find a tree to hunt for whenever. I actually like broke a bunch of sticks for like shooting lanes and left. And then like 5 days later, I came back and hunted that tree, and I had an awesome hunt. Like the buck I didn't get a shot at him, but he came out of that bed. He actually fought with another buck below me. And so, like you're saying, if you would continue to go in there, then yeah, that'd be That'd be detrimental.
Let us know your thoughts on that a little bit, because I think there's a lot of people think, or whether it's from mainstream media or whatever, but if you put too much pressure on a deer and bump him out of his bed, like he's gone to the next county. But then you talk to other guys, it's like you bump them out of their bed and let them get away, and that reinforces in that deer's mind, like, hey, I'm safe. This is solid. I just got away.
It worked.
I'll be back there,
Yeah, I mean, I've heard Dan say that too. Like, my bed worked. Like, I'm alive. I'm going to do it. I know it keeps me alive, so I'm going to go back to that bed. And I would say, I mean, just a little. I mean, I don't know from experience because I haven't really bumped buck out of their bed too many times and re-hunted them. But I would say, until it becomes a nuisance to them, like, oh, this person's on to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not that they have the ability to think, but if they get bumped, 3 or 4 days in a row, I'm sure they're probably not coming back. They get old for a reason, but
yeah.
So I'm on the lines of if you bump them once or twice, they're coming back. That's the side I favor too.
Yeah.
But I think Andre and those guys, I mean, they do the bumping with the jump and dump sort of thing where they actually kick the buck out of their bed and kill them in the beds the next day or something like that.
Yeah.
It's crazy stuff.
Yeah, it's aggressive whitetail hunting is a whole new can of worms for a lot of people, and
well, for so many years, you just saw
thought would be like absolutely not.
TV and magazines told you no way,
Yeah, the part that people are able to do that is you have to have a lot of area to hunt. You can't just have one spot to hunt.
Yeah,
you have to have, I mean, maybe 100 spots to hunt.
And it's probably small. It's probably harder to do on small private chunks too.
Yeah, here we have so much public, and how many acres of public land do we have around here?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I mean, our national forest is 500,000, plus we have game lands and timber company everywhere. Basically, if you just point and you can hunt it, for the most part.
So we have endless amounts of property to hunt. So we could do this every day. We could try jump and dump on a buck every day if we
jobs.
could. Yeah,
that's the only hope.
Yeah.
Getting away everything.
But I mean, I wanted to touch on one more thing. The whole in-season scouting, you were talking about that. But when we, like a lot of times when we go into an area that we know has a good bedding area that we found in the spring. So we'll come in on that bedding area, whether it's the same elevation line or maybe just a hair above or hair below, whatever the wind's doing. And we actually, most of the time, we glass as we come in. So we're not just kind of coming in saying, oh, the buck bedded there in the spring or the deer bedded there in the spring. We'll actually come in and look for sign as we're coming in. And I'll with my binoculars, I'll look around for sign, and I'll sneak towards the sign, and then I get a little closer where I feel like I'm putting a little pressure on that bedding area. So what I'm saying is the beds might be there in the spring, but the sign is going to tell you exactly what's going on. So if you don't know how to come into a bedding area and read the sign as you're coming in, you're probably not going to set up in the right spot. Mm-hmm. So that kind of goes along with the whole in-season scouting stuff where it's on the fly scouting. So we try not to be in there all the time, finding that, scouting that over and over, but just come in when you hunt it and trying to kind of read and react sort of stuff when you come in, which found to be really successful. That's probably one of my favorite things to do.
That makes a lot of sense. Something I've never done as far as, I'm always looking and scouting, when you're going, regardless of what you're doing in the woods, but as far as like using binoculars and glassing, of course, I don't have binoculars this year. Somebody left them in Colorado. Shout out.
That's a story for another day.
Talk a little bit about how you're approaching those beds and thinking of the wind, thermals, as even, I guess, in hill country and topography, how bucks are using topography as far as them seeing out of their beds.
It's a deep subject.
Yeah.
I mean, the wind is.
You could talk. We could have a podcast on wind direction,
especially in hill country.
Oh
yeah,
and
I would even
wild.
Like a lot of stuff here. I wouldn't even call hill country. It's like they're mountains, and I think it's even different than say like smaller hill country. It can just be.
Yeah.
It can be wacky.
More dramatic hills creates more dramatic wind.
Yeah. But. And then one day in one spot, if the wind's blowing 5 miles an hour, your right tree might be here, but if you come back a week later and the wind's blowing 25 miles an hour, you don't want to sit there. You're probably going to want to be like up the hill because you're going to get just a bigger whip, and and I mean that got me last year.
Yeah. So like as we're coming in and scouting, we're dropping milkweed.
Yep.
Just like a lot of guys are.
Yep.
And for coming in as we're getting close to where we want to be, we're really paying attention to that milkweed, what it's doing, and where we think the buck's going to come in. We obviously want the wind. And we're not scent control guys. If they smell you, they smell you, and especially hiking in.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like big woods, hill country, like
you're sweating.
You can't.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So we just beat their nose by being smart with our milkweed and knowing where the wind's going when they're coming in. I always kind of go back to the story of me killing my buck last year. That was a pretty good example of. So there was it was a knife ridge, and there was a couple. Knife ridge ran east and west, right? We had a south wind, and so I came up. There were some points coming off to the north, and I figured there were some big rubs up there I saw from hunting it a couple days prior. I didn't have much time, so I slipped up there, and I figured the buck was going to bed on either one of the points. So I came up from the opposite side of the points, and I came up in the middle of the 2 points. So the bowl was on the other side, and when I came up at the top of the ridge, I was dropping milkweed, and the milkweed was going across the ridge, and I would actually follow the milkweed to the other side of the ridge, so my scent wasn't going left or right on those points. I wanted to make sure my scent was going right down into the bowl. So I followed the milkweed over, I hung my set, and actually I'm hanging my set, and I have a little 8-point right in front of me. He ends up winding me and taking off, busts and runs, and then I had 2 more spike come in as I'm getting settled down, and I only have like 40 minutes of daylight left. I just got in there real late. And right at last light, that 6.5-year-old deer came out, and he was feeding on acorns November 7th, and he was calm as could be. He wasn't running does. He just got up out of his bed and was feeding. And I ended up snort wheezing him in 35 yards, killed him at last light. But the cool thing was he never winded me. And I was going to say something else. Can't remember what it was. That little buck ran right by him.
Oh, the one that you jumped. Or the one that you spooked.
40 minutes before him, that buck took off. He might have been blowing, I don't know, but he took off running and ran right down the point. And then half hour later, this buck gets out of his bed and comes and feeds on acorns. 6.5-year-old deer. We've learned that too. It's like just because you bump a deer and he runs doesn't make or break your hunt.
Sometimes I look at it as a good thing now. Like if I'm sneaking in and bump up a couple doe, like, well, if the doe are back here where I just bumped them, that means there's more deer out where it's good, And I used to, like, you'd think your hunt's over, or now it kind of makes me excited. Like, well, there's more out there, and deer get spooked all the time by whatever, coyotes or who knows what, Like, they see that all the time in their bedding areas, deer getting up and running around. So I don't think it's, unless you go busting through there, it's not. A lot of times it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
And you should hunt it.
Yeah. But back to the whole wind direction thing, and then you always got the thermals. So, if you think your buck's coming through right at last light, then you're going to want to be downhill of them in the evening when your thermals are dropping down. And that's where things can get pretty tricky when it comes to wind direction.
I don't notice a thermal rise here much. But I do notice when the sun goes down that last 20 minutes of light, when even on a windy day, it seems like when that sun goes down, stuff settles down. Like the wind calms, and you'll notice that, especially in like mountainous stuff where it's more dramatic topography, I notice that drop. So we do keep that in mind. I'm sure that rise is happening, but
maybe a little bit of wind is overcoming that.
Yeah.
Yeah, wind in hill country, it took, I grew up hunting flat ag ground where there was basically no topography.
Mm-hmm.
And the way the wind works around points, like when I first started hunting, I guess some of that more topography type land, you would look at the forecast and say the wind's whatever, it's northwest wind, but you would go to where you wanted to hunt and it'd be like coming out of the south, and it was like, what the heck's going on? Like, and then it saw that all year, and then it took us a while, or at least me a while, to learn how that wind was going around points or hitting one ridge and, you know, swirling or going up and then coming back down, and it's tricky.
Oh yeah. Definitely just have to be a student, you know.
Yeah, that's where coming in and hanging your set every time you hunt, that's the game changer. I mean, if you go hunt a stand, yeah, you might be able to do it on your flatland and stuff, but when you were up in the hill country and, you know, and the wind speeds are different and the temperature's different and thermals and all that jazz, I mean, hang and hunt is definitely the right way to go, just because you might need to move it 10 yards.
And when we scout postseason, we do pick trees, but we don't hold ourselves to those trees. You know, we just that just gives us a general, like, if you're walking in, well, maybe I don't want to go any farther than this, you know, because I'm going to be getting dangerously close to the deer that should be bedded there. But like he said, you know, we move around if you have to.
What is dangerously close for you guys? Is that 50 yards? Is that 80 yards? Is it?
I'd say more like 80 to 100. I mean, I think just with what our winds do here, and I mean, I'm sure you could do it.
If we knew that there was an exact bed, and exactly knew we saw the buck in it, and we, you know, you might be able to get into the 60-yard mark.
Yeah. If I knew he was there, I would feel comfortable sneaking in that close.
Yeah.
But the fact that I don't know. I think we found too that
sometimes we pick like a buck's in an area.
Yeah.
Like we say, you know, the buck's not in. We used to be like, oh, there's a buck bed and he's going to be in this bed, and we used to hunt it and be like, and then we wouldn't see a deer and we'd be like, what the heck are we doing right now?
Yeah.
Or it was, you know, early on, but now we're just like, this is a bedding area and that buck is going to be somewhere in this. Maybe if it's 50 by 50 yard area, and there's a really good doe bedding area here, and the buck might bed just in the rut, maybe just somewhere off that doe bedding area, which we found to be true. So that's probably one of the reasons why we stay back just a little bit for right now, is because we haven't really perfected it yet, and we still see the buck in daylight a lot of times leaving these bedding areas. So it's just a matter of being in the right spot when they do leave it.
I don't know. I feel like we're just getting right into the good stuff, and I can already hear Steve snoring in his chair in his cabin right now. I don't know. Is there anything else you want to cover here to wrap things up?
No, I don't. I mean, we can always talk deer. I think that's anybody here, but I think we got some good nuggets in there.
For sure. Yeah, we really appreciate you guys welcoming us into your home after a long
thanks
day
for
of work.
coming.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Really appreciate it. And if anyone listening has not watched Pursuing the Allegheny, we'll link that in the description of this podcast, and we hope that you guys check that out because it's really awesome regardless where you hunt, and might inspire you to go try to hunt some new areas. So
appreciate
anything you guys want to share before we cut it?
No.
We
did good.
I think we did all right.
Right on. Thanks, guys.